Shalom, shalom, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Uh, this is another episode of My Take with Rosh Ya'acob Abraham and Rosh Ya'acob ben Abraham, Rabbi, Gethsemane Spiritual Temple Congregation. In our congregation, we focus on Torah and Torah knowledge, and on this show, that's what we focus on as well. We try to break everything down based off of the Torah. So tonight, we want to try to get straight into the point with a lot of things. Yeah, we'll try to get straight into the point. So we want to start off. We're going to have our breaking news. It's not that much breaking news for this week. I got a few things, more or less just some things that just been floating around. I thought I had some other things for you all, but I just couldn't seem to find it. So I'm like, okay, if I do find it, I'll just use that for next week. Normally our breaking news take a minute. So tonight I don't see it taking that long. Just got a few things here and there, mainly because I really just want to focus on tonight's main topic. Tonight's main topic is very important. I really want to focus on it because there's just a lot of things going on with that. I just feel as though it's very important to get into it, and I'll explain it more once we get there. Basically, because it's dealing with our historical records, and then we have people who try to make light of the historical records. We really got to dig into that, so I'm going to really take my time with that. So most of the show is going to be about that tonight. All right, so with that said and done, shalom for everybody that's out there. If this is your first time viewing this, please like, share, and subscribe. Please hit the subscribe button. You can see more information. Please share it. And of course, if you're watching it, even on a replay, like it. I got a lot of views that I get on the show, and then getting the views, many times I don't get any, there's no extra likes or anything like that. And getting the views. All right, so we're gonna get ready, go ahead and get started. Let me see. This one right there. All right, so we're gonna get it started with our breaking news. So, breaking news for tonight. Let's go to breaking news from tonight. I got several stories. The headline story is a story based off of
sometimes you just wanna respond.
Based off of Steve Harvey. There was a lot of stuff going on where a lot of people was saying that Steve Harvey and it was going through some stuff with his wife. And they were talking about how Steve Harvey was going through this stuff with his wife, and it was just a lot of stuff going on with that. And I looked at all that and I was like, so I can't really report on this because I feel as though I'm not sure if this is true or not. So I said I wasn't going to say anything or deal with it at all because I'm like, I don't even know if this is the case or not. So I was like, well, I don't even know if this is true. I'm not going to report on this. And then sure enough, he comes out and he makes it clear that these allegations are false. I'm like, see, I would have reported on that and it would have been something that was false. So this is him breaking it out. That this is first time addressing the issue where he's going to let it be known that these things that was said about him and his wife is false. Let me rewind it back.
Sometimes you just wanna respond, but I ain't got no time for rumor and gossip, man. God been good to me.
This bruh man from the fifth floor, and you tuned in to Forgotten Kings TV.
Bruh man from the fifth floor.
Good and bad. Before I get started, just let me say I'm fine. Marjorie fine. I don't know what y'all doing. Find something else to do. Cause we fine.
Hey, that's what I said.
I sure wish I could cuss though. Sometimes you just wanna respond, but I ain't got no time for rumor and gossip, man. God been good to me. I'm still shining, fine. I don't know what y'all doing, but find something else to do, cause we fine. Lord have mercy. Man, I sure wish I could cuss though. You know, listen, sometimes you just wanna respond, but I ain't got no time for rumor and gossip, man. God been good to me. I'm still shining. I appreciate y'all coming. Listen.
All right, so we got that from Forgotten Kings, as bruh man from the fifth floor said. And yeah, so we see that all those rumors was just that, rumors. So I was like, wow. Now, was some things that did pop up that I said could have been discussed Torah-wise based off of it, but I didn't want to use that case if it was not true and add to the rumor mill, because that in Torah is called Lashon Hara. And Lashon Hara literally means evil speech. It is when you go around as a talebearer, just peddling gossip and stuff that, of course, is not true and is for no purpose. And I didn't want to get caught up with that. So I'm happy that I circumvented that situation. So that was one headline. Again, I'm not going to spend too much time on the breaking news. The next thing, that I say, this is some funny stuff that I saw. Now, this one is funny, so I want to get y'all take on this one. This one is funny.
Human odor on those things. And he knows from his training that he sit down when he finds something, when the handler tells him it has human odor on it. So for instance, if a bad guy is running and he drops his cell phone,
Did y'all what he said? Hold on.
he sit down when he
The brother gonna rewind it back to let you hear. This is a training, right? He's talking to the youth, trying to talk to him about the dog. And he says if a black guy, a bad guy. But no, he said black guy, like letting you know what they looking for, right? I know y'all might be like, here you go, Ya'acob, there you go. Now listen to him. I see he gonna play it again for y'all.
find something, when the handler tells him it has human odor on it. So for instance, if a bad guy is running and he
When I was in college, I learned about this concept called the Freudian slip. You know what I'm saying? It's when you like accidentally say something, but you be like it's very telling what you said. I think that's what it was. Yes, defined as an unintentional error regarded as a revealing subconscious feeling, a Freudian slip. You know, named after this racist white dude named Freudian, Sigmund Freud. That's his name. Never mind him though. You know, some people argue that a Freudian slip is the desires and urges from the unconscious mind. And that makes me think about the Alzheimer's disease, which is kind of funny because a lot of my people that work in old folks' homes and, you know what I'm saying, around individuals, you feel me, that need, you know, that type of assistance, they talk about the Alzheimer's people having horrible memory, but they still remember we the N-word.
Yeah, and he right about that. I know many people who deal with patients like that, and they call them gal and remind them of slavery times and all that stuff. You be sitting there looking like, dang. And we gotta remember it wasn't that long ago. We keep acting like it was so long ago. It really wasn't. But the brother is on point, very, very on point. Where he let that slip out. That's how he really felt. He really felt like that. He just let it slip out. Say, "Oh, I mean, the bad guy." First he said the black guy, bad guy, right? So that was one breaking news thing right there, and I thank our brother for this. What's another one? Let me see. This is something that I didn't know. Now, I want to know, did y'all know this? This blew my mind. This is a segment. I'm trying to set the segments up. I just got to really take time and just do it. This is a segment that I'm going to be calling things that make you go, And this is weird stuff or stuff that you didn't think about. And when I seen this one that I'm about to show y'all now, I was like, am I in a different timeline or something? You know how they talk about the timelines and all that stuff where they say you can, I know I'm getting weird on y'all. Where they say you can have, what do they call it? They call it the Mandela effect, where you'll remember something as one way, and then when you look at it, you'll see that it was another way. But you'll be like, I could have sworn it was this way. And this is crazy what she's about to break down. I'm gonna let you see it. I'm just gonna let y'all see it.
Wait a minute, let me sip my coffee for this one. So you telling me?
Now think about it. He got Forrest Whitaker, Ken Whitaker, and Damon Whitaker. Why did I think all of them was the same person too? I did not know it was three of them. Did y'all know it was three of them? I did not know it was three of them. I said, I had to go back. I said, am I on a different timeline? I went and looked it up, right? Because the young one, and she gonna get it too, he played in Ghost Dog. And I'm like, I seen Ghost Dog. No, he wasn't no daggone Ghost Dog, right? Yes, I had to post this one. I said, yo, I had to, Aki. I was like, hold on now. I said, I thought I was in a different time zone. I had to look it up. I had to make sure. I said, oh, this got to be fake. They really different people. I was like, and it really, but when you go to Ghost Doug, the older version really is Forrest Whitaker. Because I said, I know it said Forrest Whitaker. It was him. The older one where you seen him on the roof fighting, doing a karate with the Tyler Perry cornrows in his head. You knew, like, yeah, that's Forrest Whitaker. But his little brother Damon played him when he was young. So as a young version, I'm on the show. That's where he played. So I said, okay. But as you see the guy, Ken Whitaker, that's the one that we see on the Malcolm X, on the joint with Malcolm X and Bumpy Johnson joint, right? Ain't it Bumpy Johnson? I think he's supposed to be Bumpy Johnson. And I'm sitting there like, I just knew that was Forrest Whitaker. And it's somebody named Ken Whitaker, his brother. I would have never guessed it, Aki. So you're right. When I seen this, I had to post this. So this will go under the things that make you go, I knew that. So I'm gonna let it play out.
They all wasn't the same people. They all wasn't the same people. Like, who else knew this? Who else
didn't know it.
Of this situation? Who else knew of the situation? Because I am
wasn't me.
2 years old.
Me too.
2 years old.
2 years
Finding
old.
this out. That's crazy.
Yeah, the Godfather of Harlem. Yeah. And the whole time it's Ken Whitaker. I'm thinking this. We was talking about this the other day. I said Forrest Whitaker do a good job in the Godfather of Harlem, and now I find out that it wasn't Forrest Whitaker at all. That is crazy, crazy, crazy,
I
crazy.
didn't know that. Did you know that?
Nah.
Let me know if you did or not, because I did not.
I didn't know that neither. I had no idea. Now I can kind of see it. You can see where they sort of look different, but yet you can tell it. Their genes strong. Whichever one, there was some strong genes, boy. Because, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Could not tell me that they weren't the same person. All right, now, this part of the breaking news, this is going to bring us into what we're going to be talking about for today. This part of the breaking news. And this is something that's deep. So I'm going to open this up. All right, so pay attention to this. This is deep. I seen this and I knew I was going to use it one day, but I didn't know when. And because of what we're going to be talking about tonight, I'm like, this is the perfect time to bring this out. Because I want you all to hear this Ashkenazic brother break this down. And we actually had a thing at I think it was the UB Blake Center downtown in Baltimore a long time ago. And I believe it was Rosenberg. There's this brother's name, this rabbi's name that's up there. I think his name Rosenberg anyway. I believe it was him that was there, and he came and he was showing us all the places in Africa that they went to where it was Jews, where it was Israelites. And he just was breaking it down, just getting us to see that these black people, these Israelites, were Jews in Africa, and he was going to all the different parts, and we was just sitting there like, wow, he breaking it down. And what made it powerful, as you gonna be able to see, is that whenever it's us talking about that, it's like, oh yeah, you guys, whatever. It's like, we're not believing you, right? But then when it's somebody outside of us talking about it, even with our own people, it's like, oh, now I can believe that more. It's like, you can believe it more when we were saying it. Now you can believe it more, but it is what it is. But for tonight, I felt like this was important, so I want to let him go ahead and break this down to us.
Nigeria is just a name that the British threw onto the amalgamation of a bunch of different tribes there that destabilized the region and led to a genocide and a Holocaust of the Igbo people. Where in the 1960s, millions of them were systematically killed and murdered.
Yeah, he told me about that too, but I was running late.
And so it's so this is so relevant because we have such a never again Holocaust theme, but these people had it.
Now, let me rewind that back because this is going to be very vital to what we're going to be talking about tonight. And I probably should have waited for that, but this like a prelude to it. So let's look at it. It says Nigeria, one of the places that the majority of us came from on them slave ships, right? Nigeria is just a name that the British threw onto the amalgamation of a bunch of tribes. So that name is a name that the British put on this amalgamation of tribes. In other words, the people that was there did not call themselves Nigerians as they do today, right? That's what they call themselves today. But originally, it just was a bunch of tribes that was there. Keep this in mind. Then he says, there that destabilized the region. So they destabilized the region and led to genocide and a Holocaust. So they led to a genocide and a Holocaust of who? It was a particular group of people in this Nigerian region that were being slaughtered. Who were these people? The Igbo. The Igbo. The majority of us who came over here, who parents and great-great-grandparents and ancestors came over in the hulls of slave ships are from this tribe. Now, the author of the book that we're going to be talking about also talk about other tribes in this region as well that was Israel. But this tribe in particular is being looked upon even by the state of Israel as being Jews or Israelites. The state of Israel proclaimed it. Right? Check this out.
Where in the 1960s, millions of them were systematically killed and murdered.
In the 1960s, many of them were systematically killed and murdered. Even before that. He's just talking about in the 1960s. Watch this.
Yeah, he told me about that too, but I was running late.
And so it's so this is so relevant because we have such a never again Holocaust theme, but
Hey, like he said, now when he said we have a never ending Holocaust theme, what he's saying is he's dealing with the Ashkenazim at this point. Right? Saying the never ending Holocaust theme is basically saying, never forget. We always want to remember. Whenever anybody act like they did forget, we want to remind them so they know not to forget again. And that's the situation with that, right? But look at what he's about to say about the Igbo.
These people had it. But what is mind-boggling to me, which I can't imagine why this is not in the news and not spoken about, is that a large chunk, more than a fourth of the transatlantic slave trade came specifically from this one tribe.
Okay. So what does that mean?
So how are we not starting to connect dots and being like, wait a minute? So the tribe in Africa that the government of Israel is fascinated with and enamored by is now the blood of those people flowing through the African American community here.
The blood of those people, the Igbo, is running through us. These people that they now are professing and proclaiming to be Israel, to be Jews.
Which makes sense to me why they're all being like, we have an Israelite affinity where we're identifying, this is us, we are this. And so I'm like, so yeah, if the DNA of the blood of these people are in them, they have a valid claim to feel and say that.
Exactly. See, and that's what we about to get into later on. We're going to get right into that, and going to delve into that point, talk about a lot of different things, and then go from there. But while we're waiting to get all of that together, we're going to go to our artist of the week. So we're going to deal with our artist of the week, and then when we come back from our artist of the week, that's when we're going to get into the main reason why you all logged on tonight. All right, so with that being said and done, we're going to get into artist of the week.
I need through. What will I be without you? Don't wanna go without you. I can't see without you. Guide me through. What will I be without you? I'm in need without you. I'm feeling lost without you. No instructions, no love, no joy. Without Yah, my life will be null and void. Without your spirit, I'm heading in the wrong direction. Total darkness, completely cut from in his presence. Oh, how comfortless would that make us feel? Just the thought of it. Yah, give me chills. Ain't no less you build, everything we gain. All labor, all riches, all being vain. You said praise your name. My spirit speak true. I really need you, Yah. I don't know what to do. I'm in a battle with my flesh. Abba help me fight. The flesh is weak, but the spirit can last all night. Yahushua was in the Ruach immunized. It's what we have, would never forsake the Torah. And as long as I trust in you, there's no defeat. We already won. I'm shouting victory. Guide me through. What will I be without you? Don't wanna go without you. I can see without you. Guide me through. What will I be without you? I'm in need without you. I'm feeling lost without you.
Yeah, that's our artist of the week, Naya Joshua. She also has in the song many other people. That song was brought to my attention by Brother Walter. So if you two have any song, or if you have any person that you might want me to do a show on, or to talk about, or anything like that, just let me know. We can bring it through. So if you got a breaking news story that you like, you gotta talk about this, Rosh. Or if you got a segment that you want me to focus on, you're like, well, Rosh, you gotta talk about this, Rosh. Or if you got a song, anything, just email it, send it in a clip, whatever it is, just get it to me, put it in the comments, whatever way to get it to me. I'm on Facebook, send it to me on Facebook. I think my link for my Facebook is in there. If not, I'll put it in there. And you can send it to me on that, send it to me on Instagram, send it to me on TikTok. I try to be on all those different things that I know everybody is on. I don't focus on Instagram or TikTok as much. But Twitter, Facebook, I do see a lot of things on that, and of course YouTube. So yeah, just or send me an email. Sometimes I'm hard with emails. But my family and friends watching that they know me. They like, yes, you are. You hard on them emails, boy. You don't pay them emails no attention. But I try to, especially when it get close to time to planning for the show, I try to look at the emails and say, okay, let me make sure I didn't miss nothing. So yeah, you can send me an email or what have you. One brother already sent me something for the next artist of the week. He was our artist of the week before, and he hit me up and said, Adrian, I think you're going to like this one. And I was like, you know what? I do. So next week, I'm going to have him down as the artist of the week again with another fire song that he has. And appreciate him for hitting me up. So yeah, so hit me up. You know, we can put some stuff together and go from there. And also, I got the breaking news. So I got the breaking news. Not the breaking news. I got the Karen of the month. I loaded that video up today. It's doing really well. It got almost 300 hits already. I said, wow, people really wanted to see the Karen of the month. So got the Karen of the month. So you can go on the page. You can check that out. We gave the Karen of the month this month to the city of Dubai. They had to get it for what they did. I can't wait till y'all see the next month's Karen of the month. This guy. Yeah, it's a guy. This guy. Yeah. So we'll get there. But anyway, so we're gonna go ahead and get into our what we came here for. And that is dealing with this issue about From Babylon to Timbuktu. That's the book that's in the background. And last week as we was closing out, I was letting you guys know last week as we were closing out, I said, you know what? I want to deal with From Babylon to Timbuktu, because the last video we was talking about Eldad, the Danite, and was talking about what the case study that Divine Prospect had used to bring about the information that he was trying to expound on. And I was like, you know, an excellent book to go into to deal with that will be From Babylon to Timbuktu. And I said I was going to try to see if I could find something where it could maybe be somebody talking about or reading it or something, and we can play that a little bit and we can go into and discuss stuff. Or I could just read through the book. So I was looking across some stuff, and then I found this guy, Vocab Malone, had did something where he seemingly was saying he debunked From Babylon to Timbuktu. And he was on there, and I was just sitting back like, what? Huh? And all that good stuff, right? I was like, where the world is he getting this from, right? And yeah, it really got to me, and I just was, as he was calling himself debunking, of course, I grabbed my copy of it, and as y'all can see, let me hold this up. This is making me disappear. Hold on. See, show y'all my copy of it. And as y'all can see, as you see that tape on it, you know, this is old. I had this for a minute really went through it. So of course I grabbed my copy because I wanted to see, okay, what is he debunking? He debunked it, right? So I'm like, debunked what? What you debunk, right? So I said, I gotta see this. So I followed him along, and I'm like, what are you talking about? You ain't debunked nothing. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna do the show about this. It was meant for me to find this because I would have never known that he had this debunking video out here. So now that I found it, we're just gonna deal with it. And like I said, that should take up the rest of the time. We're gonna break this down and deal with it. Sister Michelle said, this guy, vocab is trash. He shows no receipts, just talk out his neck. Dante Fortson had buried him already. There's nothing left. LOL. You right, Occulty. You right, heart serving. Heart for serving. Yeah, heart for serving said that you are right, Occulty. Yes. I was just like, what is going on here, right? And when you said, I'm just like, I'm thinking, all right, I'm just gonna let y'all say it. I'm gonna let y'all say it, right? But before we get to that, let me see. It was something that I wanted to do. Hold on. I want to bring up a picture of Dr. Windsor. I know a lot of people say, no, it's professor or mister or blah, blah, blah. Always give people, even if they don't want the title, if I feel like you earned it and you deserve that title, I give you that title, doctor. Even if you'll be like, no, brother, just call me brother or call me this, that, and the other. I'll be like, doc, right? Because I just feel like it is what it is. And just want to give people to shine as I can. All right, so let me bring it back here. I want to find this picture of our brother. Bring it up here, so we all can see. Well, where is it at? It's gracious. Seriously? No wonder it did that. All right, let me bring this over here. All right, guys, y'all know me. This live, so we want to have fun with this. Have fun with this. All right, let me see. I don't think I could pull this one up. Bring like a more recent picture of him. Let me see. No, that's too small. You know what? I think I had a picture already. Let me see. Try to get the perfect picture because all these pictures kind of fuzzy. Let me get a picture. It's not a perfect picture, but it's a picture of him beside his book. It's still fuzzy. Fuzzy picture. That ain't gonna work. Okay, I might can use this. All right, so I'm thinking I should be able to use this. All right. Okay, so here we go. We have this nice picture of them. And what I'm going to do while we're looking at this, I'm going to actually I want to read from his preface out of his book so we can get an idea of who he is and all this good stuff. Right. And of course, y'all can't see it. Let me come here. There we go. All right. So I want to start this off right by introducing us to the man before we start digging into his work and you start hearing the disrespectful stuff that brother Vocab Malone was saying. All right. This is from the preface of his book, where he's explaining what his book was about. Because I want y'all to see the importance of this book. I read this book when I was a young man, and as y'all can see from all this gray hair on my face, I almost look like, man, I'm about the same age as he is on this picture right here. But when I originally started reading this book, I was young, fresh out of high school, and I stumbled across this book, and it changed a lot of things. I already had an idea about different things from what my grandfather taught me and showed me, and then this like confirmed and built up a lot of stuff. So I was just like, wow, like this is crazy. And this is what Dr. Windsor says in his book. He says, this book is intended as a supplement to existing literature on African and Black Hebrew history. To get a background knowledge of the history of the Black races, the reader is urged to start at the beginning and continue to the end. The aim is to present material that will not only inform and interest the reader, but will impart truth, self-confidence, and racial pride to the Black man, and at the same time enlighten the general public concerning the contributions to civilization, the ancient Black races. Now, why is he focusing so much on Black? During this time that he wrote this, and let's look at this, right? Let me see, where did we get it? The date that this is written. We give it right on the inside. He first wrote this in 1969. So during the time he wrote this, racism was at a high. Was a lot of different stuff going on with Black people. Yeah, 1969. So when he wrote this, hey, shalom, shalom, Sister Carla. Nice to see you here. Appreciate you logging on and all that good stuff. So he wrote this in 1969. So it was a lot going on during this time where all we was taught about our history was you was a slave. That was it. Wasn't really taught too much good. I mean, that's pretty much still it to a degree in school systems, unless you have teachers that's informed that will say, hold on, let me kick out more information, right? But he wrote this in 1969. So that's why he's hearing him say all this focus on black and what he's saying is supposed to do for black people. That's why he says the aim is to present material that will not only inform and interest the reader, but will impart truth, self-confidence, and racial pride to the black man, and at the same time enlighten the general public concerning the contributions to civilization of the ancient black races. Now, he's not saying that this book is perfect. Wrote you should cover TCA and how we going after all of it. Oh, you talking about vocab and all that? I missed what you were saying, Akoti. I was reading, but I'll try to peek back at it and see what you were saying. But yeah, I'm gonna touch on him and the Street Apologist and all that stuff, as that's what you speaking on. All right, so he says, let me see, where was I at? The aim is to present material that will not only inform and interest the reader, but will impart truth, self-confidence, and racial pride to the black man. So his main goal is to help us not feel like, oh, y'all just were slaves, and that was the end of that. There's more to your history than when you came over here in the hulls of slave ships. I remember when I was young, I hated Black History Month because I hated keep hearing about slavery and I was getting whipped and all this stuff. And I hated it. Hated it, right? And then when I began to learn the truth, I started reading more about history now. Then I wanted to know more, and then be able to back that stuff up and look at all that stuff. So, yeah. So he says, and next, to enlighten the general public. So this is to let everybody else know that's looking down and saying all you black people just were slaves and Abraham Lincoln freed y'all and all this, that, other. No, it's to let them know the contributions to civilization of the ancient black races. So he said, okay, we've been looking at history, we looking at this stuff, and we don't really get into color and how the people look. Generally, when you look at the historical stuff, they don't do that. He said, I want to do something different. I want to point out how these people look because I want a certain people, which was his people, which is us, to know that these people look like you. So he said, I don't just want to focus on what they did. I want you to have an idea of how they looked so you can see yourself in them. Powerful thing, right? Now, he's not saying that his work is perfect. So when people say, well, it's not a perfect work, he didn't do this and he didn't do that. He himself he's not saying that it was perfect. Look at what he says. He says, in general, I've tried to follow a chronological approach in the book, but it has been difficult to maintain a 100% consistency. Certain subjects are to some extent repeated because I've elsewhere dealt with another phase of the same material. So in other words, you might see stuff in the book where it might seem like it keeps saying the same thing over and over. I tried to minimize that. And of course, in times when stuff like that happened, just knowing that the school that he went to, which was a Hebraic school, that he got his degree from, just having that idea, understanding of that, we know when we look at works in Torah, if it's something that they already address, they'll address it again, but they might don't go into that much emphasis in it. Like we've been looking at this book called the Taryag Mitzvot, where it has the 613 commandments. And what I was explaining to the class is that when they get the parts that is either going to be discussed at length somewhere else, or if it was already discussed, they're not going to mention it. So even though we see the verse in the Bible talking about it, they just, when you looking at that book, it's not going to talk about it at all because it already talked about it. And he's talking about something similar where he doesn't want to just not talk about it. Like we still talk about it when we go through it. I still say, well, let's still talk about this, even though it's probably going to talk about it later. Let's talk about it now because it's right here in the text. So that's the mindset he's coming from, where he's trying to keep it in this order, but sometimes it's going to cross. So he says certain subjects are to some extent repeated because I've elsewhere dealt with another phase of the same material. In many cases, a refresher is provided in order to bring the reader up to date. Look at who he consulted with. I have consulted with many scholars in a compilation of this work. So this is not a work that he just did just willy-nilly. And he did this to get his degree. He did this for his master's, right? So this is what he wrote for his master's, and he turned it into a book like most people do. All right. So he said, I consulted with scholars, many scholars, in a compilation of his work. Basil Davidson is an authority on African history. So he consulted with him, right? Moreover, Alan H. Godbey and Joseph Williams are excellent scholars on Black Hebrews. So he also consulted with them, and we're going to actually see their work that he used within his sources. But look what he says, but I have not hesitated to differ from them in some instances. So in some instances, even with the sources that he used, he's not going to word for word agree with everything they're saying. In certain things, he's going to bring out his point, because when you're writing, which is what we're going to get into even more, y'all going to understand why I'm saying all this once you hear what Vocab is saying. So I want to lay down the groundwork first. When you're writing, you're trying to form your argument. You're trying to form your argument that you're going to present in whatever you're writing. And you're going to use different things, and you're going to bring out your points in the midst of what you're using. That's just what's done. That's how scholarly writing is done. That's how historical writing is done. I wrote many, many papers and had to do it in this way. I wrote many, many papers when I was in my undergrad. I wrote many papers when I was in grad school and at the yeshiva. I wrote many papers, and I did it in the way like he did it. So when I heard Vocab saying the crazy stuff he was saying that you're going to hear, I was like, what in the world is he talking about? Anyway, he says, it behooves me to express my debt to the faculty of Gratz College, who taught me much and helped me make this book possible. Now, he's giving clout to his school, which is what's normally done when you're writing these type of papers that turns into books. So he says, among these are such distinguished scholars as Dr. Elazar Goldman, who was the dean, Daniel Isaacman or Isaacman, who was the register, Dr. William Kamansky, Dr. Samuel Pitlick, Dr. Samuel Curlin, Dr. Sidney M. Fish, Dr. Esra Sharavinsky, Dr. Samuel T. Locks, Avraham Marathon, Rabbi Shlomo Balter, and Rabbi Shlomo Margalit. I also want to express my gratitude to my family, uncles, and friends who gave me much encouragement. Now, I want you to notice all of the people, the main people that he gave this credit to helping him form this book were Ashkenazim and rabbis who did not question the craziness that you're going to hear vocab question, like, I just want to know why he said that, where he get that from, and all this stuff. So I just want you to, that's why I read that. I said, okay, we need to know who this brother is and what's going on. And at the end, I'm going to read what he said just to close up some more of his words. We'll look at some more of what Rabbi Windsor said. But let's get into this vocab thing so we can see what exactly is vocab going to be saying. And you see he got his little book shelves behind him, and watch how he does this. Let's get into this.
Because what evidence? What's whenever I see evidence, as of now, I haven't seen a lot of valid evidence. What's the evidence that you think is valid evidence that I should look into?
All right, now they catch you up. What he's telling them, the brothers from TrueBree.com, and they have a channel, I think it's called the Beginners Channel, on YouTube, and he's in this discussion with these brothers. So it looked like he's on their show where they're interviewing him, and he's on their show, and this is the clip that they let him use for himself, and he just clipped it up to try to show how he debunked, according to him, Dr. Windsor's book. So they're telling him about historical documents and factual evidence, and he's going to say, what factual evidence? What do you mean? And so forth and so on. So like, watch what he does.
Well, we have different video evidence showing the people tracing their DNA and them, giving us that information. You have multiple books that's proven.
What's a good one?
You have from Babylon to Timbuktu.
Okay, can I grab my copy of that real quick?
Now, he's about to go grab his copy from Babylon to Timbuktu because he already has stuff set up where he thinks, okay, I got these pages so I can debunk. Because what you'll notice, and I believe this is what Heart for Serving, our sister Heart for Serving, was trying to tell us, and I'm going to go look at it in a minute to see. But what you'll notice is Vocab Malone and it's a group of other people that he belongs to. They come up with ways where they can kind of debunk and deflate the argument that our people will make when we trying to show who we are. And for the most part, when it's religious things, they can try to bounce around with that based off, oh, this your perspective, this your thought. But then when you come to historical evidence, it's kind of hard to deflate against that. So now, of course, they've been studying. He feel like he came up with a perfect way to do it, and we want to show him and all those other guys that it's not.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I copy that real quick.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I have this book, right? There's some problems with it. I don't think it does show what you're saying at all. I mean, I imagine you've read this entire thing?
Yeah, I've read it.
All right, so for example, page 84.
All right, so page 84. Let's go see what he's talking about. He said, for example, page 84. Now, I'm gonna go back to page 83, because page 84 is like in the beginning, in the middle of page 83. I mean, the middle of the section for page 83. So this section is called North African Black Jews. I don't know if y'all be able to see that. But on page 83, it says North African Black Jews. That's how it starts off. And he wants us to go to page 84 because it's a part in there that he wants to quote unquote debunk.
In the year 65 BC, the Roman armies under General Pompey captured Jerusalem. In 70 AD, General Vespasian and his son Titus put an end to the Jewish state with great slaughter.
Now, I want you to notice what he's reading. It says, in the year 65 BC, the Roman armies under General Pompey captured Jerusalem. In 70 AD, General Vespasian and his son Titus put an end to Jewish state with great slaughter. We'll keep going.
During the period of the military governors of Palestine, many outrages and atrocities were committed against the residue of the people. During the period from Pompey to Julius, it has been estimated that over 1 million Jews fled into Africa.
All right, now. Oh, man. All right, so in the year 65 BC, Roman armies under General Pompey captured Jerusalem. In 70 AD, General Vespasian and his son Titus put an end to the Jewish state with great slaughter. During the period of military governors of Palestine, many outrages and atrocities were committed against the residue of the people. During the period from Pompey to Julius, it has been estimated that over 1 million Jews fled into Africa, fleeing from Roman persecution and slavery. Then he says the slave markets were filled with black Jewish slaves. Now, I'm gonna let him give his question from this.
Fleeing from Roman persecution and slavery, the slave markets were full of black Jewish slaves. Okay, so I'm gonna stop right there.
Stop right there.
A few things about this.
Mm-hmm.
One is he cites no source for this number.
Now, he says he cites no source for this number. He didn't cite a source for any of the stuff that was said. Why didn't he cite a source for any of the stuff that was said? Because he didn't have to. Vocab says he has to. And he's focusing on a number. He didn't cite a source for in 65 BC Roman armies under General Pompey captured Jerusalem. He didn't cite a source for that. He just said it. He didn't say where he got that from. He didn't say where he got in 70 AD, General Vespasian and his son Titus put an end to the Jewish state with great slaughter. He didn't say where he got that from. Where he get that from? He didn't say where he got that from. During the period of military governors of Palestine, many outrages and atrocities were committed against the residue of the people. Where you get that from? How do we know that happened? the same reason he didn't cite that is the same reason with this. And the idea is when you Satan something, and I think the brother is going to try to break it down, but he's going to try to run around that. When you state something that's a known fact, it is no quoting where you got it from. Most of the time when you state where you got something from is when you're quoting something. Or if you let it be known that you got it from a certain word. Now, for the most part, where do we know most of this information came from? Most of the information we have about the wars of the Jews is from a guy named Josephus. Now, does he say that he read the works of Josephus? Well, let's look. Because he says he doesn't say anything, right? All right. So in the back of his book, he has this thing. It says, it says list of sources, right? So he has his sources listed. And it says the history of ancient tribes and races in Asia, Africa, and Europe. So when he's talking about the tribes being in Asia, Africa, and Europe, these are the sources that he got this information from. So he says Joseph Dinker, The Races of Mankind, and that was published in New York through Charles Schreiber's Sons in 1900. He got Herodotus, The History of Herodotus, translated by George Rawlins, and that was New York, and it's the Tudor Publishing Company in 1928. And lo and behold, Flavius Josephus, which is where we get most of this information about what happened in 65 and 70 and all that AD with the Jews, right? Flavius Josephus, the life and works of Flavius Josephus. So that's the book that he got this different information from, translated by William Whitson in Philadelphia and Toronto. And it's the John C. Whitson Company was the company that published it, and it was in 1957. So when he says, don't know where he got this information from about these Jews in Africa and this stuff about right here, that's where he got it from. And because it's not a direct quote, he doesn't have to say, put a number to show where it came from. He doesn't have to. He could do that if he wanted to, but he doesn't have to. And the way he wrote this, you could tell, especially dealing with this with his school, they would have caught that and said, where did you get that number from? Right? They didn't say that to him. They helped him publish the book. So how Vocab discovered something that the Jewish school that our brother went through didn't know. So all he would need to do is provide the source in the bibliography or the source page as common knowledge. Exactly. That's the first thing popped in my mind, Sister Carla. That's the first thing popped in my mind. I was like, what is he talking about? Like, I was hot. I couldn't get through the video. I could say, is he serious right now? Now, I'm going to let you hear how he plays this out. Because I'm thinking that's all he had to do. If it's not a direct quote, he doesn't have to say. All he had to do is put a source in. If we look at a textbook, and this is the first thing part I said, we look at a textbook, right? You look at the textbook don't tell you every time they break down some information in the textbook where it came from. At the back of that textbook, you have all the sources that let you know where they got all that information from. And for the most part, all the different people would agree. No one disagreed with him about this until Vocab decided that it was a problem. The only thing he's saying is a problem is that 1 million black Jews went into Africa. That's the problem he has. But again, with the video that I played from Rosenberg, Rabbi Rosenberg at the beginning before we even got into this, and as I told y'all, he came and did a lecture at the UB Blake Center some years ago. He did this lecture, and our congregation was amongst the other congregations that was there, and he showed where it was Israelites or black Jews throughout the continent of Africa, just as Dr. Windsor shows in this book. So, let me let y'all hear what Vocab said.
Just nothing. There's no source at all. It just says 1 million. Well, he wasn't alive back then. How does he know? Shouldn't he tell us how he knows that there was 1 million? He said it's been estimated. Well, who estimated that? This is not academic writing. You can't trust this because you don't know why that number is there.
And then he said it wasn't academic writing, Sister Carla. That's what really got me. I said, that's not academic writing. What are you talking about? Like, I was like, oh my goodness. Right? And he says, so, oh my goodness. And he wrote, I know his book probably crazy. He wrote a book. That's what you see on the side. That's his book. He wrote Street Level Apologetics. Apologetics. That's the book he wrote that he got on the side right there.
I see him writing it, but I want to know where he got that number from. Don't you?
Now, I really, the way he's presenting this to the brothers is, you know, most of the brothers feel like, okay, just like with the Bible, if you say something, you got to go to it and show it in the Bible. As soon as you say it, show it in the Bible. You say it, show it in the Bible. Yeah, but as that, you said, what qualifies a piece of work as academic? That's what I was trying to figure out what he's trying to say, right? Because what qualified me, and I remember we had classes in this when I was in undergrad. We were debating over different people that was considered pseudo and all this other stuff. And me and some other people had to defend certain people, like they tried to say Ben Yakanan was pseudo, and Dr. Henrik Clark was pseudo. And I'm like, well, you can't say if they got stuff that's backing up what they saying, if they got sources. So once you have this work, and he has this book, this page back here with his sources, this give you the idea where he got everything from. Yeah, so they were pseudo. And I was in that class like, what? Right, so man, his other brother, we defended it well. We defended it off, said, no, they wasn't pseudo, right? So we show, you know, through their works that they did, where they had the sources right there to show you, okay, this is where we getting our information from, and then they will break it down. With any work, as long as you breaking it down, and then when you have quotes, as long as you follow the rules of the MLA, the Chicago style, or any of those other rules of writing where it tells you how you're supposed to quote stuff and so forth, if you follow those different styles, it's scholarly, it's academic. You know, it's not, he's saying, like, if we looked at that with a textbook, everything we had, you just, every time you say something, you got, okay, I said it because of that. Then I'll say, well, why didn't he say that with that? That's why I said, well, notice what else it says. So let's look at what else it says. So it says, even in that, like if we went back to the beginning of it, on page 83, in the year 331, that Alexander the Great defeated the Persian Emperor Darius at the Battle of Gomela, correctly called Arbela. All right, where you get that from? Don't say nothing about where you got that from. Where you get that from? I need to know where you got that from. He wasn't back then. How I know that happened? That's how he's approaching this. No one's questioning. Everybody knows and understands that this happened. Just like the other stuff he's saying is known and understood as what happened. So for him to point out that one issue and make a big issue about it, I was just like, eh. But the main thing the reason why he wanted to make a big issue out of it is because it says, and then notice it says it has been estimated. So that means he's not saying that this is a direct anything. Through his research that he was studying, it was estimated that over 1 million Jews fled into Africa. That's his problem. Over 1 million. Why was it so many? How we know it was so many? Because he don't want you to have this idea that it was this big influx of Jews going into Africa, even though we got proof through Elephantine, even though we got proof through Beta Yisrael and the Ethiopian Jews, even though we got proof through all those different measures that Israel did go into these different parts, into the Sudan, into all these different regions. At times when they fled, it even tell you about different times with that in the Bible. You know, we had classes about this in the yeshiva where they went through different things. And it's also other works that says the same things. But because he's saying it in this book, and he's talking about black Jews, that's why he has a problem with it. It's like, oh no, it's a problem with this. So let's finish. Keep hearing what he's saying. We want to hear how the brother argues it out.
Do you know where he got that number from? 1 million Jews fled into Africa?
Well, I would take it that he got it from, resources dealing with the people, because in that same book, it talks about, how he interviewed certain African tribes and things like that.
Now watch what he does.
I would imagine that's where he got that from. And notice he said it was estimated. So it could have been less, it could have been more.
Right, but we need to know who did the estimating, right? We need to know, like, who estimated? Because if it's you said he interviewed modern day Africans, well, how would they know? They're alive in the 1990s or whenever whenever he interviewed them, perhaps in the 60s or 70s.
Now, that's his arrogantness in a way. How do we know about stuff that happened here? Through historical writings and through educational system, right? So if he interviewed those, so you saying that the Africans didn't have an educational system? Like, so they wouldn't have knew anything? Like they just wasn't back then, so they wouldn't have had no knowledge of any of this stuff? That's one of the things that I hate, especially when dealing with Beta Yisrael, where they give the history of their tribes, how they got into Ethiopia and all this stuff, and then you had people just dismiss what they say. I'm gonna tell you how it happened, and give their version. It's like, well, dang, wouldn't they know? Wouldn't they be able to tell us how they got this, that, and other? Like, listen how he says it. How would they know? Why wouldn't they know if it's dead? How would they know? Can we really believe what you mean? Oh my goodness. Even though we know he got it from Flavius, what is his point? He's ridiculous. Information was passed on the same way we documented. Yeah, exactly. That's what I say. What do you mean? How would they know? What are you talking about? It's their country. The same way we pass stuff down and got historical stuff. What you trying to say, that they don't have it? Like, this is the way he said that. I was just like, and I remember years ago when I was young, and this just shows you the arrogantness, right? When I was young, I had this history teacher. He taught us, and I think I probably was in fourth grade. He taught us that us blacks that was here was different than the ones in Africa, because we were civilized, and they civilized us when we got here. And the ones over in Africa, savages and all that stuff, right? And I'll never forget, I went home. I told my mother that message. She was like, what you learned in school there? I said, I learned that we civilized black people here, and the ones in Africa, savages. She said, what? Like, she dropped the fools. Like, what you just say? And she went up that school and wowed that school out. And then the teacher tried to act like he didn't say this, that, other, but he did. I repeated back everything he said to me, right? And this is the arrogance that you hear from him. He's like, how would they know? Why wouldn't they know? Why wouldn't they know? You saying how would they know? Like, they don't know about their own history. Like, they need you or somebody else to tell them about their history. How would they know? You serious right now?
You know, they're alive then. How would they know what happened back in 70 AD? How would they know that 1 million, you know? And here's the other thing. This says fled into Africa. It doesn't even tell you where. Africa's a massive continent. Is he saying that they went all the way down to South Africa by and large? Or were they mainly in North Africa? Now, if he's saying North Africa, which actually has some merit to it, Rome controlled that area. But he says they fled Roman persecution.
I'm sorry. It took me. It was so hard for me. This is only 24 minutes. It took me so hard to get through this 24 minutes. Think about what he said. So he said, first he said, how would the Africans know their own history? What are you talking about? You're not making no kind of sense. Then he talks about if it was North Africa, that would make more sense. The idea behind that is because they like to separate North Africa from the rest of Africa. They say North Africa was Europeanish. Then when you go below the Saharan, the sub-Saharan, that's when you get us. So that's why I say, oh, if it was North Africa, yeah, yes, that's cool. That's cool, right? That's good if it was North Africa. North Africa was us too. Oh my goodness. All right, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna let him play through. I'm gonna stop. So we gotta get to this other part he's gonna bring up.
Well, if they're fleeing Rome, why are they going into North Africa, which is controlled by Rome? Look, in fact, I got a book about it. Let me show you this. This is called Christianity in Roman Africa.
Right.
And the reason it's called Roman Africa is because when Christianity was spreading at this time, this was still basically considered part of Rome. Well,
now, this shows his lack of understanding in history. During that time, the Christianity that he's taught about, that wasn't even around during this time period that they talking about. He's talking about when the papacy came into play, when Constantine decided, okay, I'm going to dig into this. He's just upset because this side of history does not glorify and support his version of history because blacks are not viewed as inferior or subservient. Exactly. And then he brings up this book that's from a whole other time period and try to use this book as evidence. I'm like, what are you talking about? This not. And the brother gonna be sharp though. The brother about to put him in his place with that.
Christianity is spreading after 70 AD, by and large, as far as when the book is concerned. Well, so how are they fleeing the Roman government if they're going into a Roman area? That does not make sense. How can they? And then he says the slave markets were full of black Jewish slaves. Slave markets where? What's the source? How does he know they're Jewish? How does?
All right, now that and again he's really fluttering up the historical account. Everyone knows and talks about during 70 AD when the Israel was taken into slavery. They was sold everywhere in different markets and stuff. They were sold. He's pointing out black because he's trying to remind us how the Israelites or the Hebrews or the Jews looked. His idea is he just don't like that word black man in it. We about to see that in a minute.
You know, he doesn't give you any of that information. This book is a book where you just have to take his word for it. I was taught that's not how you read academic. That's not the way that you read academically. You don't read where you just accept everything. Unless the person is an established expert in the field or it's direct eyewitness testimony, and that doesn't necessarily mean.
That's what I'm saying. He dealt with people that was established in the field, and for his section, he was established himself as an authority in this field. But you saying he not nobody in this field. You discredited him as being anybody. He just some guy that wrote something. Do you even know what he wrote it for? Did you even look into that? Then you would know that it's scholarly and it's academic if you know what he had to write. If he had to write this book, this paper, it was initially a paper to get his degree from a Jewish college. Oh my goodness.
It's accurate. Does it mean you can't get behind it? We got to say, okay, how do we know that that's accurate? Please give us your source. Why didn't he give us his sources?
You
can't check him on this because there's no source to check. So well, I don't hold that it's valid at all. Neither should you.
We know you
I would go along with it, because if you want to deal, and I don't have that book right in front of me, but when you deal with historical sources, when they say approximately, right? Approximately this amount of people, that amount of people. That happens in mostly all historical documents. Nobody who's writing it was there to actually know how many people. Like, for instance, we can deal with the Jewish Holocaust.
Now, he's going to bring up a good example, but even without that example, nobody was there to know any of this stuff. We going by historical records that was passed down, whether Vocab agrees with it or not.
Whenever we hear about the Holocaust, we hear that millions of Jews were killed in the Holocaust, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have these sources in front of me right now, but I have a brother who brings out a source dealing with the Holocaust, and he shows how that number is not accurate. It wasn't millions of Jews.
And people
As a matter of fact, it was a mixture of not only some of the Jews in that Holocaust, but they tell you it was millions, approximately millions of Jews.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're dealing with certain sources like that, they're giving you the overall view of what's happening. Now, you mentioned them going into Africa, right? If you look at where Jerusalem is, because during the time of Mashiach, he told them, when you see Jerusalem compassed with armies, to flee, right? Now,
and then this is the crazy thing, because I know him being a Christian and understanding this is one of the historical accounts that a lot of Christendom hang on. They say that Jesus or Yahshua, right? They say Yahshua foretold that this event was going to happen in 70 AD. So in 65 AD, when Sedius came to conquer, and then he mysteriously just left and fled, and nobody could understand why he fled, because he was about to siege the city, and he fled and went about his way. And that caused the zealots and others to get this pride, like, yay, we chased them away. They ran away from us. But it was people who listened and believed what the Mashiach said. They fled and went into Africa. This is what was always taught. That's why when he was questioned, I'm like, what are you talking about? Hey, and I know him being messianic, well, he's supposed to be. He should know this. So as the brother brought that out, I'm like, how he didn't know this?
They were fleeing Roman persecution in Jerusalem, because if you know about Jerusalem and them being under the Romans and the Greeks, there was a large diaspora from Jerusalem down into Egypt, Alexandria, Egypt, and even into Rome. So you had Jews also in Rome during the time of this persecution. When the Romans invaded Jerusalem, it was because of a rebellion. Mm-hmm. It was a large rebellion of the Jews leading up to the Roman invasion of Jerusalem during that particular time. That was one of the main reasons Jerusalem was invaded by the Romans. It was due to rebellion. And so you had a large diaspora during that time and even prior to that, going into different regions, going into Africa, going into Rome, going into other Greek areas. And so the Jews who were not killed during that time, they were all taken up to Rome and sold as slaves.
Mm-hmm.
The ones who weren't sold, they were put in the Colosseums.
Yep.
And used as sport, because this was during a time when Christianity wasn't at its height. It was pretty much establishing during this particular time.
Well, if I could share something, this is from Tacitus. Tacitus is a well-known
and also the Christians, Rome wasn't no Christian place at all during this time. Christians also was in those Colosseums and thrown to the lions for sport as well. Now, watch this, though. Watch the historian he do believe in. Watch this.
trusted Roman historian. He wrote in Histories, I believe it's 513, that during the siege of Jerusalem, there were 600,000 inhabitants. 600,000 inhabitants in Jerusalem.
Now, Tacitus, this Greek guy, said it was 600,000 people in Jerusalem. Josephus says it was over 1 million. But because Dr. Windsor is using Josephus, he don't want to hear that, so he's about to use Tacitus.
And this is somebody who knew the aristocracy, and he knew he had access to Roman records and things like that because of his position. Well, if Tacitus,
and notice he said he wrote this in 500 something AD. So this was written by him in 500 something AD. Yeah. So watch when he bring up Josephus.
is giving us a number that's anywhere close, 600,000 people in Jerusalem during the war under question. Well, how is it that 1 million fled into Africa if Jerusalem itself only has 600,000? And because we have to also remember one other thing. Jews, when they scattered, didn't only go into Africa, they went into a lot of other places as well. So how do you get 1 million out of, I guess, all of Israel fleeing, perhaps? But see, this is centered on Jerusalem. So where's the number coming from? When Tacitus says there's only 600,000 Jews in Jerusalem at the time, how?
Now, Tacitus wrote in 500 something AD. Keep that in mind.
Does Windsor tell us there's 1 million fleeing into Africa? And he doesn't tell us a time frame. He doesn't tell us a source. He doesn't tell us anything. But we have Tacitus, who is much closer to the event.
And he did tell us a time frame. He was telling us right around the time frame between 65 AD to 70 AD. Right amongst that time frame. So he did say that. And you look right at it, says in the year 65 BC. In the year 65 BC. Oh, it should be AD. I think it was a typo. Just notice that it says BC. It should be AD. So in the year 65 AD, in the year 70 AD, right? So he does give us a time period.
Than Windsor, and he says 600,000. Do you see why there's some real problems? And this is what we get. This is one of the most trusted sources for Hebrew Israelites as far as their history. And you open it and you just find problem after problem.
Now, I like how he's putting that. He says when you open, you find problem after problem. But this is him trying to put that out there as this suggestion. And I open it, I don't find problem after problem. I'm quite sure those brothers up at the top, when they open it, they don't find problem. Only person finding problem at the problem is you.
Well, what does Tacitus say about the Israelites leaving Jerusalem, because that number can vary. I'm aware of that source, by the way. That number can vary from source to source. 600,000. Some sources might say over 1 million. You understand? But what does he say concerning that time frame and what happened to those Jews during that time?
Well, he says that there was a siege of 143 days. So regardless of that exact number, Windsor would still need to tell.
Notice he edited, so he cut out whatever the exchange was, so we don't get to hear that. So now he about to try to bring his own point.
Us where he got the idea that 100 million Jews fled in Africa. My guess is most people would probably say, oh, Vocab doesn't know? That's somewhere in Josephus.
And the reason why he said it, he said people will say, oh, Vocab doesn't know. That's somewhere in Josephus. It's not that Vocab doesn't know that's somewhere in Josephus. The reason why he's saying, oh, Vocab doesn't know, that's somewhere in Josephus. The reason why he's saying it in that way is because Vocab looked at the back of this book and seen that was where his sources came from. It was from Josephus. So Vocab knows pretty well where he got this from. Because it's right in the book.
That'd be my guess is what they would probably say. But let's just say that's correct. Windsor.
And it is correct. Let's keep going.
Should say that in here.
He doesn't have to say that in there. That's not how scholarly writing works. You don't understand it. That's not how it works. Only time he has to mention is if he does a direct quote from that.
And when we have to, yeah, that's all I'm saying. And then we would want to find out, okay, do we have?
And so, but then he got the brother to kind of agree with him because the brother, don't understand, but that's not how scholarly works work. He does not have to say that. He doesn't. No scholarly work does that. All you could do then is look at the sources he looked at and try to see if they go against anything that he's saying. He gives you the sources.
Have a reason to think that that's good, because I don't just discount everything just because it, maybe there is something to it, but it needs to be way more careful. And the problem is with a book like this is it's not very careful. We're talking about the basis of the theory. And we got to remember, people also went into other places. They didn't only go into Africa, and he's not very specific about what he means by that.
Again, he's trying to prove his argument, break his point down. He doesn't have to follow your direct rules of how you would have wrote it. And as long as he has in the sources where he got his stuff from, he does not have to give a direct quote if there's nothing to quote. You don't put quotations for something if it's nothing to quote. What are you talking?
And then he says the slave markets were full of black Jewish slaves. Well, you gotta break that down a little bit. I'm not even saying that's
why. Why you gotta break it down a little bit?
Possible. That's not really what I'm saying. I'm not denying that there couldn't be elements of truth to all this, but I'm saying this is not any way for us to trust what he's writing because we don't have any way to source it or check it. And he's not an eyewitness. He's not quoting an eyewitness, and not even.
Then he says he's not quoting an eyewitness. That's how you know he don't understand history. Flavius Josephus was an eyewitness. If he's quoting or if he's writing based off of the writings of Flavius Josephus was an eyewitness. If you look at his works, the War of the Jews and so forth, it's actually a part where he begins to write about himself and stuff that he did. He was right there in the midst of it. This wasn't somebody like Setius that was writing from 500-something AD. This was somebody that was right there. He was an eyewitness. So he said, well, he's not writing it from an eyewitness. He is. What are you talking about? Flavius Josephus was an eyewitness. Are you serious right now? That's why I'm like, how are you trying to The judge is like, you somebody, you don't even know what you're talking about. He was an eyewitness.
An eyewitness, but maybe a historian who lived later, because Tacitus, like,
what are you talking about? Oh my
not
goodness.
any way for us to trust what he's writing because we don't have any way to source it or check it. And he's not an eyewitness. He's not quoting an eyewitness.
He is
And not
quoting
even
an
eyewitness,
eyewitness.
but maybe a historian who lived later, because Tacitus, like Josephus, you know, they lived a little bit later. You know, they were.
They didn't show that he didn't even know when Josephus lived. Tacitus, the Greek guy, lived a little later. Josephus was right there. He's an eyewitness. He's writing from what he seen. And he's the only person who wrote many of these things, which is where we get much of the history of Jews from during that time period is from him. He is the expert because he lived it and he was there. And you talking about him as if he was somebody from 100 years or so afterwards. He was right there. So that show you don't even know what you're talking about.
We're closer to the events, obviously, than we were, but just something there, and we just don't really get it with Windsor, and this is a key thing. And there's other parts with this. For example, he'll say on page 85.
Now, this is the next part on page 85 I want to get to. I know we getting close to the time to close it out. I want to get to this part on page 85. I just want y'all to hear this. I want y'all to hear this part right here. This part got me right here. Watch this.
This is probably one of the, let me show you this.
He really didn't like this.
I'm trying to debate which part I want to get.
Yeah,
get
go
to.
to the part you want to get to.
Okay, here you go. He quotes here another guy, Grazel, and he says this. This is from page 86. Such is the explanation of how the Sahara Desert first acquired Jewish tribes. Okay, so he's talking about how there are Jewish tribes in northern Africa, or below even perhaps, toughened by a fighting tradition and possessed of physical characteristics, which it is said still make them approximately very closely the original Jewish population in Palestine. So there's the quote. But I want to show you something here from this Grazel quote, which he quotes Grazel, but he doesn't give us the source for Grazel that I can see. So it's like, okay, where's the source for Grazel, right? But watch what Windsor does. He literally, he inserts in brackets the phrase blacks in there. But let me show you what I mean. I'm going to try to get this close.
So, drop this. So, the quote from Grazel. And he's talking about, let me see if I can find that. That was which quote? What chapter? I'm sorry, guy. I want to get it because he said, "Oh, he doesn't say this, that, and the other." I'm like, okay, let's go to this. What chapter was this? This was chapter 1. Okay. I know this chapter 5. Let me see, chapter 5. All right. He says that it doesn't give where the quote came from, but yet it does. Again, he doesn't understand how historical writing works, right? So whenever you're writing a quote, and then you break that, sometimes people break the quotes up, right? This is what happened in this thing. So it starts off, it says, as a result, now this is what he just read. As a result of the merciless attack, many Jews fled to those parts of Northwest Africa known as Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, Mauritania. Now, he says he doesn't name different places, but we see right here he is naming places, right? And he says many other Jews fled to areas where Rome did not have jurisdiction. So in other words, yeah, they fled into parts where Rome had jurisdiction. Some fled into parts where they did not have jurisdiction. This was to the region of the south, the Sahara Desert, and the Sudan. And then it has a little number that says 40. Now, this is him letting us know where he got this information from, and he's about to do a quote. So before he does the quote, he gives us where we'll be able to find this quote at. It says 40. Then when you go to 40, it says, see Solomon Grazel, History of Jews, 8th edition, Philadelphia, Jewish Publication Society of America, 1956, page 250. So he does give where this information came from. It's right here in the text. He says it right here. You go to the back to his end notes and you see it right in the notes. So when he says he doesn't even tell us where this came from, what are you talking about? He did. Then it says, Grazel says, now he's giving us a direct quote of what Grazel says. Such is the explanation of how the Sahara Desert first acquired Jewish tribes. Now, the Sahara Desert is talking about Sahara Desert, Sub-Sahara is talking about the Jews in that region. Grazel is saying that it was Jews in that region, number one. So let's focus on that. Grazel is saying that. Then he says, Grazel says, such is the explanation. So we try to figure out, how did these Jews get here? He said they first acquired Jewish tribes toughened by a fighting tradition and possessed of physical characteristics. Now, physical characteristics. He's saying that these guys have physical characteristics, which it is said still make them approximately very close to the original Jewish population in Palestine. So whatever these guys' physical characteristic was, it was close to the ones in Palestine. Now, Dr. Windsor is going to insert something in brackets whenever you are quoting something. This is according to the MLA style of writing. This is according to the Chicago style of writing. This even is according to the scientific style of writing. When you're writing scholarly works, you cannot put your words in it or your idea in it to express what you're getting out of that unless you put it in brackets. You have to put it in brackets, or that's called plagiarism. You have to put it in brackets, or that's called plagiarism. So here we see he has to put this in brackets, but that's going to be a problem for vocab. Well, he put something in brackets. You can't do that. What are you talking about? You go to any of those writing books with the rules, MLA, Chicago, Scientific, you go to any of those writing styles and it tells you that's what you're supposed to do. But vocab right here is going to have a problem with it. He's going to say, what is he doing? Hey, you can't do that. Listen to what he says.
You see the quote there on the screen?
Yeah.
He literally inserts that word in there.
Hold on, let me see. Hold up.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the quotes, I see it.
Yeah.
It
He
says,
did insert blacks
Jewish
in there.
tribes,
He has the right to do that.
fighting tradition. And what's that word? I can't see it.
And hold on, sorry. And
Possessed
of
physical characteristics.
And then he puts in brackets that.
Yeah. So in other words, he's trying to get us to understand what those physical characteristics are. So he's trying to express what he's getting out of it. The physical characteristics is they are black. That's the physical characteristics that he's inferring is being talked about. Now, Grazel had the quote, but he can insert is you have that right, according to MLA in Chicago, you have that right to do that, to add words, and that's the only way you can add your thought in a bracket, is to put it in a bracket. That's the only way you can add your thought to a quote.
Right, which it is said, what does the rest say? You can just read it off. You can read the rest of it off for me.
Which it is said will make them approximate very close to the original Jewish population of Palestine. So he's quoting somebody who's saying, hey, look, some of these folks that went into Northern Africa are probably very close to the Jews who were in Palestine before they fled. Okay, that's fair enough. Don't necessarily deny that. But Windsor appears to be the one who inserts this phrase in brackets, not the author. So the author is saying they're probably close to the original population in Palestine. Windsor inserts the word blacks.
Exactly. So the author, again, if we go by what you say, Grazel wasn't back during that time period. Grazel didn't live back then. So Grazel is quoting something or speaking from something that he studied from his sources. Grazel is presenting it from his sources. I don't hear him, well, how Grazel know? And where did Grazel figure that out, right? So Grazel is saying something from his sources, right? So as Grazel says something from his source, he's saying, okay, I'm looking at this source Grazel is talking about, and I'm giving you what I got out of that. That's valid. That's illegal in writing. Because Grazel doesn't go into detail about what that meant. He just says it and go with that. But as he read it, he said, oh, that meant they was black. So he's putting in what he got out of what that meant. But he can't put it outside without putting it inside the brackets, because then that'll be plagiarism. And then that will be saying that Grazel is saying something that Grazel didn't say. Anybody who understands scholarly writing knows that the blacks that's in there is something that Dr. Windsor was thinking. But watch how he makes a big deal out of it, as if he's doing something dishonest, as if Dr. Windsor's trying to make us think Grazel said it. Anybody that knows scholarly writing knows that that doesn't mean Grazel said it. It's inside the bracket, sir. What are you talking about?
You can't do that.
You can't do
make
that.
The guy make your argument for you. You know?
Can do that. What do you mean you can't do that? People do that all day, every day. What are you talking about?
No, the brackets indicate an insertion. Brackets are.
Was that a bracket? Was that a bracket?
Now, this how you know he's being coy and trying to play with the brothers at the top. He knows that the brackets mean it's an insertion. He said it. So how you sitting back acting like you don't know that? How you sitting back trying to make it as if you don't know that he's putting his idea in a text? How do you act like you don't know that? Well, clearly, does you understand what the brackets mean? So that let me know you know what the brackets mean. So now you being disingenuous. Now you being shady. Because you sitting there pulling apart stuff that you know is legal in writing, but you figure these guys don't know. So you're going to try to play this game on them. But when you talk to people who write papers and had to write many, many papers, like me, I had to write many, many papers. I know. So that's why when I first heard you say this mess, I said, what is he talking about? Then you don't even know who Josephus is.
Bracket or quote?
Yeah. So it's quotes, and then it's a bracket inside the quote.
Exactly.
You see, he put it in brackets.
He's supposed to.
But it appears that that's Windsor doing that. So let's see. Does he
You
ever
know
cite
that it's Windsor
Grazel,
doing
like
that.
what page or anything like that?
It does
Okay.
say what page.
Solomon Grazel, A History of the Jews, the Jewish Publication Society of America, 1956. And so he doesn't give a page number, but
he does give a page number. Again, let me show. If you look right before he does that quote, it has a little number 40. And if you go to chapter 5 in its endnotes and you go to 40, it says, see Solomon Grazel, A History of the Jews, 8th edition, Philadelphia, the Jewish Publication Society of America, 1956, page 250. He does have a page number. So I don't know what version of the book you got, but I have his edition right here. This is his 9th edition. Matter of fact, this is the revised and reprint edition that I have. It is from 1988. And he does have the quotation, and he does let you know where the source comes from. So again, this is scholarly. You trying to act like it's not. You don't understand the rules of writing, and you in there trying to say stuff that ain't legal, and you can't do it when you can do it.
when you look at Grazel's, when you track down the original source, what you'll find is Grazel didn't put blacks in there.
Of course
That's
he
why
didn't.
it's in brackets. Windsor put blacks in there.
Of course.
That is not fair. That is not right,
That
because that's
is
not
fair.
what Grazel is saying.
That is
Grazel's
what
just
you
saying
can do.
They were similar to the population that left.
That ain't what Grazel said. Grazel said they possessed physical characteristics, not they were similar to the population that left. He said they possess physical characteristics. So far throughout this whole book, if you read it from the beginning up to this part, the physical characteristic of the Jews were black. So when he says this, they possess physical characteristics, this is what he's injecting in there. The physical characteristics mean they were black. This is the idea that he's presenting.
But Windsor just inserts the word blacks in there to try to make his argument. Do you see? That's why it's in brackets. It's not in the original
point you're
quote.
making. I get the point you're making. Another thing I noticed with modern day history, a lot of times that has to be done because whenever you're reading historical documents, let's say you're reading a document from the 1800s or the 1700s.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times when they're describing certain things, they're describing it in an already understood manner. So it's already understood that the people who lived in ancient Palestine were indeed dark-skinned or black people. That was already established and understood. What Windsor is doing is he's putting emphasis on that point.
Yeah, now he's right as he's pointed that out, and even though he didn't know the thing about the rules of writing and scholarly writing, that Vocab is sitting there acting like he don't know. I really believe he do know, and he's trying to play this little dopey game. Because you how you writing? Anyway. But the brother still gave him a good answer. It was already known how the people looked. And if you read the book, he breaks down how the people looked. So when he gets to this part about physical characteristics, of course he's putting that in it because that's a physical characteristic. Physical characteristic is a physical character, something that's physical that you can see and you can say, okay, yeah, this is them. That's a physical characteristic.
By putting that in there. I don't have the actual source from Grazel, right?
You don't need the actual source from Grazel.
I know that that's how modern day history or historians oftentimes do things as opposed to ancient historians. You'll see that a lot. And it's like I said, it's already understood that the ancient people of Israel and Palestine were indeed black, dark-skinned people. They were
true.
compared to Egyptians.
Exactly.
And
The quote there from Windsor's book, right, where he quoted Solomon Grazel and then said their characteristics are the same, and then literally inserted into it the word blacks. That's a book called A History of the Jews. Solomon Grazel had a follow-up book to that called A History of the Contemporary Jews. And
now, this is the wackest part right here. What's this dumb part right here? I'm sorry, I'm went past the time, but I really want to just finish this out. I don't even want to give this no part two. I just want to finish this out.
And look who he put. Look at this is the cover of the book. So clearly the author.
Now, he says this is the cover of the book. So the brother going to keep pointing out that it says the history of the contemporary Jews. It don't matter what the cover of the book says. Right? It don't matter about the cover of the book. Grazel is quoting from a source as well because Grazel wasn't back then. So it don't matter what Grazel was thinking about when he wrote what he wrote. Right? And that's how he played that game. When it came to Dr. Windsor, he wasn't back then, so how can he tell us blah, blah, blah. But then Grazel, oh, yeah, this is what he meant. It don't matter what he meant. It matters about the material that he was looking at. The material that he was looking at that caused him to write what he wrote. That's what Dr. Windsor is speaking on. That's what he's speaking on. The material Grazel used to write what he wrote. That's what he's speaking on. Not what Grazel was thinking. But he's going to twist it with this picture to try to get us to say, well, Grazel don't think that, so he shouldn't have wrote that. He should have wrote what Grazel was thinking. What are you talking about? Grazel wasn't back then. Remember what you said about Dr. Windsor? The same thing holds true for Grazel. Grazel wasn't back then. Grazel didn't live back then. Hello? Say when you said Dr. Windsor didn't live back then, guess what? Grazel didn't live back then either. So whatever source he was quoting from, that's what Dr. Windsor is inserting that black concept of what he got out of that. He wasn't thinking, what do Grazel think? That wasn't a point. Well, let's find out what Grazel think. That wasn't a point.
Doesn't think what Windsor had him saying.
And Windsor didn't have him saying
This is the cover
anything.
of Solomon Grazel's other book on the history of the Jews.
The history of the contemporary.
And that's the thing. Dr. Windsor didn't have Grazel saying anything. Again, when you see the words in the bracket, you know that that is the person who's using that quote, saying what they're getting, what they're thinking about the quote. Not saying that the person who put the quote up there is that's what they thinking. And then by him using that, he's not going off of Grazel if Grazel was the person. He's going off of the information that Grazel is writing his stuff based off of. So it don't matter what Grazel thought.
Yeah, this is his other work that goes into the modern era. This is the same
from
same
1900 to present. So
yeah, same author, different book.
But these aren't those. That picture on the front of that wouldn't depict the ancient people.
And it just goes on like that for a minute. But I just want y'all to see because he's trying to say that you can't do that. And I think he's going to say it again. I just want y'all to hear him say it one more time.
That's not a depiction of the ancient.
I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying that this is. I'm not saying that this is a picture of an ancient Jew or anything. Right. All I'm saying is that the author is not saying what Windsor has him saying, and what Windsor has him saying is that the characteristics. Let me read it again. This is a quote from Grazel by Windsor, except Windsor literally inserts the word blacks into the quote.
And again, Grazel wasn't back then. So the quote that he's quoting from Grazel is based off of information that Grazel got from his research and he liked the way that quote read, and he wanted to give us the idea what he was thinking as he read what Grazel wrote based off of what Grazel read, because Grazel wasn't back from that time period. So it don't matter what Grazel was thinking about. He's giving Grazel the benefit of the doubt that Grazel was being scholarly, and he's writing what he wrote based off of his research. And based off his research, he's saying that the Jews, that these Jewish tribes in the Sahara Desert had the same physical characteristics as the ones in Palestine. And what he's saying is, as he was writing that, and he's saying that from his research, the research says they had the same characteristics. That meant they was black. That's what he's pointing out, that their same characteristics are. So it don't matter what Grazel thought, because Grazel was writing based off of what Grazel researched too. Because as you pointed out so eloquently, Dr. Windsor wasn't back then. So guess what? Grazel wasn't either.
It's totally, you would not be allowed to do this in academic writing. Watch.
And I guess that's what I wanted y'all to hear. He said, you cannot do that in academic writing. You can. This is academic writing. This was his paper he had to write that he turned into a book to get his degree. This is academic writing. Those rabbis and deans and other people, the registrar and all those other people that he thanked at the beginning was all a witness to this book. It had to be scholarly in order for him to get his degree. So this is allowed. But you're trying to paint this picture because you know most Hebraic brothers are about quoting what you see word for word. That's it. You can't go this way or that way. He know how most of our brethren mindsets are rigged, and he's trying to play on it. But he knows good and well that you can do all of this scholarly. And it is academic to be able to do this.
What he says here. Such is the explanation. This is Grazel being quoted by Windsor. Such is the explanation of how the Sahara Desert first acquired Jewish tribes, toughened by a fighting tradition and possessed of physical characteristics, which, it is said, still make them approximate very closely the original Jewish population of Palestine. End quote. That's the original quote. Windsor puts in brackets the word blacks to try to make his argument. But that's not what Grazel said. And my point by showing this other book by Grazel is not that say I agree with it or anything like that. That my point is to say that that's the picture of a Jew that Grazel had on his book. So he's clearly not saying that the population matched and it was a black population.
Now again, if Grazel was being scholarly with his work, what he's clearly saying is that they looked like the ones in Palestine. And he's not going to be saying that they looked white. If that's what you're trying to apply by showing a picture. Because what he will point out, and he will make it known that that's, as the brother going to point back out, that's talking about from night contemporary. Grazel, in his work that he was writing, it wasn't even based off the quote right there. You act like that quote is Grazel's quote. If you go to that work and you look at that information that Grazel wrote about the Jews during that time period, you can see clearly that he's writing it from his research. And his research said that these people had the same characteristics as the Jews of Palestine during those ancient times. Now, as he's saying that, he's not saying one way or the other what those characteristics are. He's just giving you the quote. So it's not what Grazel thought. It's not Grazel thoughts. It's not Grazel words as he's trying to present it by showing us this different book. It's not Grazel thoughts or Grazel's words. It's the resources that he studied. And he's given his interpretation based off of what he studied. Because he wasn't from that time period. Dr. Windsor understands Grazel wasn't from that time period. So when Grazel's writing is based off of what he's studying, Dr. Windsor says, oh, they saying they was black. So he put in brackets black because, again, this book, as I read from the beginning, was to inspire us with a knowledge of what we did and people like us did. So that's enough of that with him. I want to go back to this right here and just close out with this. I'm 16 minutes behind. I want to just close out with this last part from Dr. Windsor and just go with this. All right, so this is from page 132 of his book. And he begins to talk about Dr. Alan H. Godbey. He says, Dr. Alan H. Godbey postulates the position that black Jews were on the West African coast from Senegal to Angola. And they, the Jews, were driven to this area from Central Sudan by Muslim propagandism. Having a knowledge of black Jews in the United States. So he's saying Dr. Alan H. Godbey had a knowledge of Jews in the United States. Dr. Godbey arrived at this conclusion. These facts have peculiar significance when the presence of Judaism among the American Negroes is considered. Hundreds of thousands of slaves were brought to America from this Western Africa during the days of traffic. And he gives us a quote to let us know where that comes from. And that quote was I think I said 58. Let me make sure. That quote was 58. And 58 comes from, we can go back up and see exactly where it comes from. This comes from Dr. Alan H. Godbey book called Lost Tribes, a Myth. And it's from Durham, North Carolina. And it was published by Duke University Press in 1930. And this is from pages 244 to 256. And I believe this quote right here is coming from page 256. And it says, beginning nearly 400 years ago, how much more Judaism survived among West African Negroes in that earlier time? Persecuted communities, they were rather more in danger than other Negroes of being raided by war parties and sold as slaves, such as the Igbo, which we heard about earlier. As persecuted communities, they were rather more in danger than other Negroes of being raided by war parties and sold as slaves. It may be considered certain that many, particularly Judaized Negroes, were among the slaves brought to America. How many of them might still hold Jewish customs? Here is another question. Now listen to this part. Before Dr. Godbey published his book, The Lost Tribes, a Myth, Rabbi Matthew Wentworth, organized a Hebrew congregation in 1918 and proclaimed that the black people of the United States and West Indies are the original black Hebrews. There are hundreds of thousands of black African Hebrews scattered throughout the United States, not only in urban areas, but also in the rural communities of this nation. With the revelation of ample historical evidence, the authenticity of these black Hebrews can no longer be questioned. However, in regard to the purity of their Judaism among some of the Jews, that is another issue. And that comes from the synagogue of Rabbi Matthew is presently, he gives us where it's located. The synagogue of Rabbi Matthew is presently located at number 1 West 123rd Street in Harlem section of New York City. All right, so he gives us an idea where. So, but he puts everything down. This brother really gave us an important work. Again, want to give him his props. Says Dr. Rudolph Windsor was born in Long Branch, New Jersey. After living a number of years in Jersey community, his family settled in Philadelphia, where he attended community college, studying psychology, political science, Grants College, where he majored in Hebrew Aramaic studies, and Temple University, where he majored in Middle Eastern studies. In addition, he has 4 sons and a daughter. He says of his book, my motive in writing it is to give the true history of Afro-American, which has been excluded from textbooks. Dr. Windsor, says professor, but I give him the title doctor. Dr. Windsor is a strong advocate of economic cultural development of the black community. In serving the community, he has been a member and president of several organizations, was delegate to the Black Power Conference in 1968, and was designated a delegate on behalf of the Ethiopian Jews to meet with Mr. Makonnen, an official of the Ethiopian Mission of United Nations in the early 1970s. Moreover, Mr. Windsor is the author of The Valley of Dry Bones, subtitled The Conditions That Face People in America, as a result of some difficulties with several book companies, since they didn't want to publish his work. Mr. Windsor redesigned his first book from Babylon to Timbuktu, and he established his own company called Windsor's Golden Series Publications. Again, Mr. Windsor over the years has appeared on radio, talk shows, lectured at congregations, organizations, universities, traveled to Europe and the Middle East. Strong contribution his brother did. He inspired others to say, you know what, we need to learn more and get more into the historical accounts. So there's a lot of other books out there that focus on historical counts. We got several books written by Brother Zion Lex that focuses on historical accounts. We got great scholars out there like Brother Divine Prospect, who's bringing knowledge and understanding out there. So you got a lot going on where it's not just what people like Vocab was used to, where you just go to Deuteronomy 28:68, and that was your claim to be in Israel. And they, that don't mean this and this don't mean that. They have a problem when you pull up books like this. And it's just one book. You got another book called Hebrewism of West Africa, right? This is one book. There's many books out there that explores and breaks down this information. So I would say, we need you young historians to go into this field, to find out more about this information for us, to bring more of this stuff to light, because these scholarly works, it's very helpful. As you see, he went through great pains to try to discourage the reading of his book by pointing out stuff that he know is done in scholarly works. He know that all you had to do is put your sources in the back. But he tried to make it like, oh no, he should have said this, that, and the other. Because he's playing on what he feel is these guys don't know, so I'm going to play on this. He knows that when you do a quote, you can put your own thoughts in a bracket. He kept saying over and over that wasn't done in academia. And it is. It is done. And he just kept saying it. I want to show y'all something. Well, we get to it later. I'll get to it later, show it to y'all later, because I don't want to hold y'all up no longer than, it's almost 2.5 hours long. So again, I thank everybody. Thank everybody for being here with us. I want to thank you all for just being here with us. Appreciate each and every one of y'all. So again, if you're new to this channel, if you stayed this far, thank you. This is a very enriching show. I really wanted to point out different things for y'all to get this understanding, because, this work is a very important work, and to have somebody just come along and willy-nilly try to discourage it and make it as if it's something that you shouldn't read, or making it as if it's something you should doubt the scholarship on is crazy. Because as you notice, when he talked about different issues that dealt with other people outside of Africa or others that looked at this information, they was good and they was scholarly. But then when it came to black people and them having knowledge and understanding of the stuff, then it's like, can we really trust them? Is it really scholarly? Can we really look at this? So again, this stuff is very, very good. Thank you, Ya'acob. Thank you. I'm glad you're still around. Others got to get up in the morning and get ready and all that. I myself has to do the same thing. I appreciate you, Ya'acob. We're going to see you in the AM as we do the Shakarit, the morning prayer. And again, my name is Rosh Ya'acob ben Abraham, Rabbi, Gethsemane Spiritual Temple Congregation. Congregation, we teach Torah, knowledge, and understanding, and we defend the knowledge and understanding of who we are. And with that, I just want to bid you all shalom. Shema Israel.